The two things I'm going to tell you about today are my main concepts, positive anarchy, or what I call homeland earth democracy. I will explain later why this expression. In my opinion, those two are the two only ways you have left if you want to act like an enlightened citizen. That's what we are going to talk about today, and I think it's very important. So, to understand what is positive anarchy and what is homeland earth democracy, we have to go through two cliches. The first one is that everything that goes wrong in the world is the fault of the rulers. In fact, when you see Donald Trump and when you see Al-Assad or when you see all those magnificent men, you can tell easily that things are wrong because the men are wrong and they rule. Okay, I agree with you on that. But I think it's not enough. I think if we go on thinking like this, things will never really improve. Okay? So what I want to talk about is first the theory on voluntary servitude, which is the concept of Étienne de la Boétie, an old concept because it is from the 16th century. The man was very young when he wrote it. He was 18 years old, so a very young man, and he died on his 30s, so he didn't... his main ideas, okay? And I think this concept is overwhelming. Let me explain this to you. On his Discourse on Voluntary Servitude, he tells that we can't complain about our rulers because we choose to have a ruler with a view to being able to be idle. I don't know if you get this, but the idea is that people want the servitude. They want to be servants. And why is that? It's because it's much more easy to have someone who writes the laws, good or evil laws, and you let him do this with no thinking. You don't have the responsibility for anything. You live your own life, and when if you don't like something, you protest, and you don't think either. So it's very easy for someone to tell another one, okay, you're our chief, you are going to think about an ethical basis, you're going to do the right things, and it's your role, it's your part, while we, I don't know, lead our lives, have children, and so on, okay? So it leads us to be very bad children, you know? When you vote on a democracy, who do you vote for and why? Maybe there are some of you who are enlightened and who try to vote for the one who you think will do the best for the whole community. But let's be serious. Many of us, the lucky ones in democracies, we vote for our own interests. For instance, I'm a teacher. Am I an enlightened one? So I think about the community, of course. But imagine I'm not. I am a teacher, and there is a man telling, oh, I'm gonna pay you the double for the same job. I vote for him. And if with a view to doing that, he's compelled to pay the other less, I don't care. The man does what I want him to do, or the woman, as a matter of fact, and I'm glad. And if he or her or she chooses something which is not in my interest but is the best for the community, I can tell, oh no, I protest. You know, in France, many teachers like to protest. Sometimes it's for good reasons, sometimes it's for bad reasons. It's for the privileges, but they don't have so many, so we forgive them. Okay, so the first cliché on democracy is that even if it is, you know Churchill's sentence on democracy? He said, democracy is the worst form of government, except for all the others. You know, Churchill was very well known for such sentences, and it's okay. And so one can think that democracy is the best of all systems, but even him said it's not really the best. Okay, every system has its flaws, and democracy has its flaws too. Okay, and I think, and Lucie thinks, that the flaw is that the moment you have someone above you, a chief, you stop thinking, you stop making the effort of thinking for the community, and you stop thinking about ethical issues. So what I mean is that when I talk about positive anarchy, is that you can reverse things you thought were in order. Let me explain, because this sentence doesn't mean anything. So you can think, because there is a ruler, a society will be okay, because there will be rules and you can follow them, and rules should be good because people elected the one they thought would be the best, and everything's going to be okay. But indeed, one person can't do this, and it's wrong because you stop thinking and you stop thinking about ethical issues. Whereas in positive anarchy, the one I think Lucie is on the basis of, the less you have a ruler, the more you have to think about the community, and the more you have to think about ethical issues. Otherwise, the community will collapse. So, what I point out here is that there is a paradox, which is that the basis of democracy is to think that we choose someone to represent the majority of us, and he will make rules which are the best, and we will lead idle life without being really concerned by what is going on. And it is the basis of democracy. And the flow of democracy is that you stop thinking, so that you want a state of servitude. And what is really important, crucial here to me, is to point out that what is really important in communities is that people get involved in thinking about the community and to go more far, I don't know if it's okay, than your own interest. Okay? In democracy, you can go on having your own interest, and you can be an individual very selfish. Okay? If you have no rules and you are really selfish, what is going to happen? We will be in a society like Hobbes describes, okay, where homo mini lupus, which means wolf is a wolf to man. Of course, it is a caricature of what Hobbes thinks, but it's to make you understand. So, if we are in a society with no rules, and we don't act on ethical basis, we will be destroyed. Everyone will be destroyed. This is the basis of the social contract, you know. You don't want your own destruction. So by being selfish, you decide to be less selfish. I don't know if you get it, but you decide to make a social contract because everyone has the same interests, which is keeping his self alive. Alive. Him, her, and her family. Okay? So, the paradox is that there is a cliché, the cliché number 2, about anarchy, is that anarchy is going to lead to chaos, okay? Because there are no rules and everybody is going to think about what is in its best interest and so on. And it's true, okay? You have forms of anarchy which are very linked to selfishness, okay? But you have positive anarchies. The one I talked to you about, you can't say that Etienne de la Boétie is an anarchist. It doesn't mean anything. But you can think about a way to make anarchy positive on the basis of what La Boétie explains about human beings. Okay? Positive anarchy is indeed an inner social contract. You have no rules, but you have an inner rule, because you understood that if you don't think about the community, if you don't act on ethical basis, everything will collapse. The community and yourself. You know that the social contract is meant to protect you. Okay? It is an exchange with your government and so on. So, what I mean is, first of all, the important thing is that you go on thinking about those things even if you have a ruler, and that's even if you don't have a ruler, maybe if you don't have a ruler, it might be the best way for you to understand that it is so important to act on ethical basis. We have forgotten this. Since there is a social contract, we have forgotten how terrible it can be if we stop acting on ethical basis. Okay? And what encourages us to act like selfish kids is that we have rulers. And the paradox of democracy is to make you think that since you elected the ruler, it would be okay because he will represent society. But you know, that's why I talk about homeland earth democracy. The word has change of scales, okay? If you have a small group, 100 person, 1,000 person, and they elect another person to rule only them, then democracy is okay. If the ruler is not great, you can change him. But in globalization, a ruler has underneath his rules much more people, and he is connected with the interests of other chiefs and their other peoples, so that he is no longer free to make for his own people which is the best for the people. So that you don't have the same chief as you can think a community used to have. Okay, so that's why you forgot how important it is to get involved for the sake of community and to think about things that we have forgotten because there is philosophical issues, even religious issues about good or evil and what ethical, unethical basis might be, and everything is again on the table, and you have to think about this, and it's very tricky, you know. So we have forgotten how important it is, but we are in a place when it is absolutely crucial to know the importance of that again. So, to explain this very clearly, I took a text, the one I have given to you, which is, to my mind, fundamental. Okay, So let me introduce this text to you. This text was written by Montesquieu. Montesquieu is well known for the, I don't know how to say that because I know it's in French, the partition of state powers. You know, it's his main theory, but it was far after he wrote that book, Persian Letters. So his Persian Letters was written about 1721, okay? And he took two main characters from Persia who come to France, and with their foreign eyes, they see how everything is weird, okay? They write to each other to think about those philosophical issues, okay? And so some of their letters are very simple, some are funny, and some are very deep in as far as philosophy is concerned. So, in one of the letters, Uzbek tells his pal a story, okay? It is a story of a people, the troglodytes. Troglodyte doesn't mean anything. It's nowhere in the world. I don't know if you know what it is. It's people who live on excavated rocks, okay? It doesn't mean a place in the world specifically, okay? But it tells a story. It's quite a bit of a utopia, okay? And what he tells is that these people, the troglodytes, used to live together, and that there were a great war because everybody was selfish and all, and that after the war, some of them decided to group together and to live on the basis of virtue, okay? And they go on like this for decades, and it's perfect. They all share everything, there is no property, and so on. And what I'm going to talk about is the moment when there is so there has been decades that they live on those principles and everything's okay, and since their number goes bigger and bigger, they decide they need a chief, okay? And troglodytes are quite smart, you know, because they go to choose, they choose a man which is very, very virtuous. The more virtuous, the most virtuous of all, okay? They are very smarter than we are, okay? Because we never vote for the one who is, okay? We have many examples in political history. Yeah, of course. Okay, we will debate this later. Okay, so they are very wise because they choose the more virtuous of all of them, okay? And they go to see him and tell him, okay, we've chosen you, you are going to be our chief, because you're the more virtuous and you're going to go, we want you to rule, okay. And you can think the old guy is going to be honored or glad or satisfied, and he's not. Worse, he starts crying, it's very dramatic. He sheds torrents of tears. And then he bawls them out. Okay, so the troglodytes go to see him and say, oh, we've chosen you as a chief because you're the most everything. And he doesn't tell them, okay, I'm very glad, I will do my best. He bawls them out. Okay, why? That's what we are going to do, and I think you've already understood what is going to happen here. It is it's never exactly, but it's really like what La Boétie says. It's because they want a ruler, and the old man understands that if they want a ruler, it's because it's too much of a burden to act on ethical basis. It's tiring and all. And they want someone to tell them, you do this and you do that. And they do this and they do that, and they mind their own business, and sometimes they rebel. Okay? So look what the old man says. It's in the middle of the text. I see, he cried, O troglodytes, what moves you to this? Uprightness becomes a burden to you. In your present condition, having no head, you are constrained in your own despite to be virtuous. Otherwise, your very existence would be at stake. Okay, it's exactly what we are dealing with from the beginning of this lecture, you know. He brought them out because he has understood that uprightness becomes a burden to them. Okay, it's too tiring. And then he tells what I think is one of the most important sentences in political philosophy. In your present condition, having no head, you are constrained in your own despite to be virtuous. It is so interesting, you know, because I don't know if you know Jean-Jacques Rousseau. It's a little bit later, okay? When he writes the social contract, it's 1751, so it's later than this text. Montesquieu is still alive, but it's later than the Persian letters. So, you know, there is this idea, I will make a caricature, but it's to make you understand, which you can consider like the contrary of what Hobbes said about men, okay? To make a caricature, there is the idea that Rousseau talked about what he called the noble savage, okay? He says, so sorry for this translation, that a man is born good and that society, civilizations, makes him bad, okay? Corrupts him, that's what he says. Okay, so there is the idea in French philosophy that in Rousseau's philosophy, man is good by nature. And it's the society which is not. Civilization which is not. So you can say if man is good by nature, the good is pouring out a man. Okay, so it's really easy to be virtuous. It's not what the old man tells here. And it's so intelligent. You are constrained in your own despite, which means that the troglodytes don't want. It's not. What I mean is, may the troglodytes be bad men, they are constrained to do virtuous things because otherwise their very existence would be at stake. And how do they know that? They know that because they have their own history, their own background, and in their own background they have ancestors who lived on the basis of selfishness, and there was a big war and everybody died and it was terrible, okay? We have forgotten this. So we elect someone and let him rule and protest and change him every 5 or 7 years, and that's what we do, okay? But since they have memories of that, because some are still alive, and that they decided not so long ago, decades ago, to live on the basis of ethical reflection issues, they do it despite what they want. So even if they wanted to be selfish, they wouldn't be, because they know that it will destroy their society. So they have what I call an inner social contract. It's not a society which made a social contract, but they know that if they don't act on ethical basis, their society will collapse. So they have to practice positive anarchy. So the troglodyte society represents what I call positive anarchy. The very idea of positive anarchy I don't know, popped up into my head by reading this very passage of the Persian letters. Okay. Listen to what he says next. You would rather become the subjects of a king and submit to his laws, you would rather become the subjects of a king and submit to laws of his framing laws, less exacting than your present customs. You know what he means. That rules of a ruler, you just have to abide by them or to refuse them. But you don't have to think, are they good for the community and is that ethical and everything? Because it's his job. You elect the man for that. And of course, I don't talk about Al-Assad and other tyrants or despots, okay? We all agree that we are discussing democracy because it should be the system in which we are virtuous so that we choose the best men or women to rule, okay? But we don't. In other systems, that you have a big, how do you call this? A big bully who takes power. It's not important to discuss it. It's already wrong, okay? The problem is why in democracy it should be right and is not. Why it is the worst of all governments except for all the others, like Churchill said. Why? We have to understand by this. Okay. And he goes on saying, you know that then you would be able, so then when you will have a king or a ruler or a chief, you will be able to satisfy your ambition. So listen to this, it's a contrary to what we are used to think. We think with rules, it's not chaos because people abide by the law, so it's perfect. But indeed, it's when there are laws that people let it go and think about their little petty interests. Okay, it's the contrary. Then you'll be able to satisfy your ambition and while away the time in slothful luxury, so it's going like this, and that, listen to this, provided you avoided the grave of crimes, there would be no necessity for virtue. That is what we do, okay? On different scales, if you are involved in your community or if you don't care at all and you just want to make money, okay? There are different scales, of course, there are different human beings, there are different ways to get involved. But on the principle, we do this. We avoid to do the biggest crime, we don't kill, we don't, but we park our cars anywhere. In France, I live in Marseille, you know, south of France, we do what we want about this, okay? And where there is a police, we I'm sorry, I'm really sorry, I'm a young woman. Okay, so, bad girl, okay. So, you can do this, it's not a problem, but it means you don't think, you just act what is the best for you, okay? So, that there is no necessity for virtue, okay? You think, I won't be a criminal, okay, I'm not Hitler or something, so, I can take a little money from the state, okay? I can try to have more money than I deserve to have, or it's better if the money is in my pocket than in another one. I prefer my family to the community and all that stuff we do on regular basis. We do it every day indeed, okay? And that's because we have rulers. And that's because we have rules and there is a switch in our head, a little voice saying, it's not a big deal, okay? If you abide by the law, nothing really wrong can happen. Terrible. I'm against it, absolutely. Okay, so what I want to talk to you about after reading this passage is about, in France, l'homme providentiel. I don't know if you know this expression. I would translate it, but I don't know if it's okay. But French people wish for the man of providence, okay? Like Napoleon Bonaparte, or like Charles de Gaulle. If you go to France, you can't go anywhere without having an avenue Charles de Gaulle, or a tube station Charles de Gaulle. and so on. And it's right, because the man was in England and tell people that it was not a fatality that we became Nazis. So yay him, because France was in a bad position during the Second World War, as you know. And it was de Gaulle who went to Great Britain, and with the BBC he talked to French people, and there was the resistance. Okay, French people organized themselves so that there is a big change, and so that they can, from the inside, defeat the Germans. Okay, so there is a French wish for the man of providence. And what we call the man of providence, we have two big examples, is Napoleon Bonaparte, because he gave France a major visibility, and he made great victories and so on. And there is Charles de Gaulle. Okay. And what I want to say is that this idea is very tricky, because indeed what we call the man of providence is a despot, okay, someone who has all the power, but since he's good, it's okay. It's exactly what people hope in the troglodyte community, you know, by going to see the old wise man and choosing him as a chief. It's what they do. Our idea of providential man is we want to be lazy. We don't want to act on ethical basis. It's too tiring to think about virtue and all that stuff. So we choose someone and hope for the best. And maybe he'll be someone like Charles de Gaulle and save our community, and all will be for the best. So the French wish is to be lazy and having someone who is providential, which means nothing, and whose rules are great. So we don't think and nothing bad happens. It's so lazy. Okay? So, okay. We can go a little bit. We can go on with that, with the text of the Persian letters. We can think that indeed we are going to talk about Homeland Earth democracy. We are going to see that indeed the troglodytes are more intelligent than the wise man who cries. It's tricky, isn't it? Lot of mystery here. Okay, so why? By virtue, despite of their own will, okay? And they choose the chief, which is the wisest. And the chief tells them, bawl them out, telling them they are lazy. They don't need a ruler, and they should keep going on without a ruler, on ethical basis, on acting on virtue. Okay, but look, what did the troglodytes do? They came to see the wisest of all, and even if it's not conscious, they did what's the best for them, because the wise man is right. They are about to stop acting on the basis of virtue. They are about to stop troubling their mind with ethical issues. They are about to do this. And so they go to see the only one who is capable of pointing that out. Yay then. They are so intelligent, even if they didn't mean to. So, in spite of crying like a baby, I would say that the old man, the wise man, should bawl them out. He's right to do that. But he also should accept this, accept to be their chief, because once he is their chief, he can tell them, my only rule is that you have to act on ethical basis, and you have to go on being a troglodyte like you used to be. Okay? I will never agree that you soften, that you get less involved in your reflection, in your thinking about the community. It is the only role you can hope for a good ruler to tell you to do. It is the only rule a ruler can tell you to follow, okay? And that's what I call home on earth democracy. And this is very interesting because we are used to think that there is a partition, okay? On the one hand, you have anarchy, and on the other hand, you have systems, governments. And we are used to think that they are antagonistic, okay? They are opposed. But what we see together today is that they're not, absolutely not. They share the idea that the only important thing is that one should not delegate his power of getting involved and thinking deeply about ethical issues. And whether you have a government or not is not important, okay? Because it's inside of you. The only difference is if you think you need someone to remember you have to do this. This is your basic rule, okay? So that's why in the depth it's absolutely the same, but it can't be good that someone has the mission to remind you to do this, and why not penalizes the ones who stopped doing this, okay? So it's a new type of rulers. And it implies that you can live in positive anarchy, which is inner government, or in a home on earth democracy, which is a government outside of you, which reminds you what is really important, crucial to do. Okay? So there is no such partitions. Institutions are shells. If a shell is inhabited with something very positive and intelligent, then it would exist, it would gain visibility. And when it's invested by bad energies and that kind of stuff, it collapses. Okay, so it's not, the question is not is there an institution or is there not an institution. The interest is to think on what is deeper, what is the deepest on the construction of institution or the choice not to have any. Okay? Last but not least, this system is a great way to answer, to my mind, obviously, it's a great way to avoid one of the biggest flaws of democracy, which we practice every day and which we see every day and which we condemn every day, which is mediocrity. You know, I think you know Alexis de Tocqueville, who went to America to see what was democracy indeed, and he thought at the very basis of democracy there was mediocrity, because everyone expressed itself. And the problem is not that everyone expresses itself, it's great. I can't be against it, okay? But now that there is internet, so many centuries after, few centuries after Alexis de Tocqueville, you know what mediocrity and democracy is. I have the right to express myself, so I don't think, and I react. Okay? Everything I see, everything I hear, I give my opinion. But it's not my deep opinion. It's not an opinion that I thought about on ethical basis. It comes down to this again. Okay? If democracy is mediocrity, it's a shame. But if you abide by the rule we talked about and decide if what you have to say is important or not, if you have an inner guide to reflect on that basis, democracy, even on the internet, will not be like it's today. Okay? It's a shame. It's a shame that the liberty to express oneself turns out this way. Okay? There is a word, mediocracy. It is a word with those two words, mediocrity and democracy. And it's the same. This flow is also due to what we talked about here. I will finish by explaining you why I chose the expression homeland, earth, democracy. I thought about another expression to talk about the same thing. It could have been global village democracy, the Marshall McLuhan's expression. I don't know if you know that. What I mean is the question of democracy in globalization. That's my point. Globalization makes at once the individual absolutely of no importance and absolutely in power. It is a paradox of globalization, okay? And I think it's because there is this change of scale that it is very important to give new bases for democracy. You know, at one point, the question people had to deal with were, for instance, in France, you came from a land, specific land in France, which had its language and so on, his customs and everything. And then there was great nations, you know, in the 19th century. And people had that difficulty to have a double identity, to be an individual from one land and to act as if it was a French citizen. It was a great deal, okay? And now, what is an individual? Look at all that scales. You are a member of a family. Obviously, the family is the basis of society, Jean-Jacques Rousseau again. So you are a family man. You are a man of your land. You are, for my French citizen, for my part. You are into Europe, or you're not, and you are into globalization. There are so many scales that if you don't make the effort to reflect on your inner rules, then it would be chaos. You can have an amount of governments like you have today, you know, your country's governments, what in France we call préfet, which means delegates in some lands, and you have those who rule city, mayor, and so on. So there is all structure, it's all a great structure in one country, and then you have European issues, and there is common rules and so on, and then you have the laws of market and its invisible hand. Okay, there are so many scales that if you don't think first on the basis of the smallest one, all those rules will not prevent bad things to happen. Okay? So I hope you got what I meant. I hope you got that I am not strongly for positive anarchy better than homeland earth democracy. I am for those two because they are on the same basis, which is myself and you, and the duty you have to remember that you have a will, you have power, and you have to use it wisely on ethical basis, and that it compels you to a lot of thinking, and it's very difficult, and it's the end of idleness, but it is for a good sake. So let's do this, okay? Thank you.